Before we start, I just want to say this. I grew up hearing people talk about quiet places, like they were safe. Like nothing bad could ever happen where everyone knows everyone. But after reading what you're about to hear, I'm not so sure anymore. These are 5 stories that all came from isolated villages, places where the roads end, where phone signals cut out, where the night feels heavier than it should. And in every one of these stories, the scariest part isn't the dark woods or the empty fields. It's the people. I was 22 when I took a temporary job delivering supplies to farming villages. It was simple work. You'd load up a small truck with things like fertilizer, cooking gas, sacks of rice, and sometimes medicine, then drive out to places that were barely on the map. Most of these villages were spread out. 10, 15 houses. A little shop. A hand pump. Then nothing but fields and quiet. One village, though. I still remember it clearly. It was called Carter. The road to Carter was one long strip of dirt that cut through wheat fields. No street lights. No signs. Just wind and crops and the occasional scarecrow that looked too human from a distance. When I reached the village, it felt off. Nobody was outside. No kids running around. No animals wandering. Just closed doors and still air. I parked the truck near the central well and waited for someone to come out. After about a minute, an old man stepped from the shadows of a house, like he'd been standing there the whole time. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. He just stared at me with tired eyes and said, "You came late." I checked my watch. It was 6:40 p.m. The sun was already slipping behind the fields, and out here, darkness came fast. "Sorry," I said. "The road was rough." He nodded slowly, then motioned toward the truck. "Unload quickly." As I started moving the sacks, more villagers appeared. Quiet. Barefoot. Watching me, but not really helping until the old man gave a short command in their language. Even when they helped, they didn't talk. Not a single person asked my name. When we were finished, the old man handed me cash and said, "Leave before full dark." That sounded like a warning, not advice. I chuckled nervously. "Is it dangerous at night here?" The old man didn't laugh. He glanced toward the wheat fields, then back to me. "You'll see the lights," he said. "Don't follow them." I stared at him. "What lights?" But he already turned away, like the conversation was over. I should have left right then. But the road was so bad, and I was tired. I also had to drive back nearly 2 hours. And I didn't love the idea of doing that in complete darkness. So I did what a lot of people do when they ignore warnings. I stayed. There was a small guest room behind the village shop. A dusty bed, a wooden chair, and a single bulb powered by a weak generator. The shopkeeper, a thin man with a patchy beard, didn't look happy I was staying, but he didn't refuse. He just said, "Lock the door. Don't open." "For who?" I asked. He didn't answer. That night, after dinner, the generator shut off and the village went pitch black. The kind of darkness that feels thick. You can hear everything in that kind of dark. Every insect. Every breath. Every tiny movement outside. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep. Then I saw it. A faint glow, slipping through the cracks of the wooden window. At first, I thought it was someone walking with a lantern. But the light didn't stay still. It drifted. Slowly. Smoothly. Like it was floating. I got up and stepped quietly to the window. Outside, beyond the last house, in the wheat fields, there were multiple lights. 3, then 4, then I saw more. They were pale yellow, like candle flames, but too steady. And they weren't in a line like people walking. They were scattered, moving in different directions. I watched, confused, feeling a weird coldness spread through my chest. Then one of the lights stopped. And it started moving closer to the village. Closer to me. I backed away from the window. The shopkeeper's words echoed in my head. Lock the door. Don't open. I sat on the bed and told myself it was nothing. Just villagers. Just lanterns. Maybe kids messing around. But then I heard something outside. Soft footsteps in dry dirt. And a sound like whispering. Not clear words. Just a low, murmuring hiss. It circled the building slowly. I held my breath. The whispering got closer to the door. Then I heard a slow knock. 3 taps. Not loud. Like someone gently touching the wood. I didn't move. The whispering paused. Then I heard a voice. It was quiet, like it was right up against the crack in the door. Come see. My stomach dropped. The voice didn't sound like a villager. It sounded wrong. Like it was learning how to speak. I stayed silent. Then the voice changed slightly, like it was trying again. Come outside. I show you. The door handle didn't turn. It just stayed there, as if whatever was outside wasn't even trying to force its way in. It was just waiting. I sat frozen, staring at the door. Minutes passed. The whispering moved away. The footsteps faded. I didn't sleep. Not really. Just waited for sunrise. When the sky finally turned gray, I opened the door cautiously. Outside, the dirt was covered with footprints. Bare feet. Dozens of them. All around the building. Like people had been standing there, circling it all night. But no one else was outside now. The village looked normal again, like nothing happened. I loaded my truck quickly and went to the old man's house, ready to confront him. He was already outside, like he'd been expecting me. His eyes went straight to my face. You saw, he said. What was that? I asked, trying to sound angry, but my voice shook. Who was outside my door? He didn't answer directly. He pointed toward the wheat fields. Long ago, he said quietly, people got lost there at night. They followed lights. They never came back. I swallowed hard. So what are they? He stared at me for a long moment, then said something that made my blood go cold. They come back, he whispered. But not the right way. I didn't ask anything else. I got in my truck and left. As I drove, I kept glancing at the wheat fields. And right before the road curved away, I saw something standing between the stalks. A person-shaped shadow. Still. Watching. Then, just as the sunlight hit it, a faint pale yellow glow flickered where its face should have been. When I was in college, my friend Samir invited me to his grandmother's village for a weekend. He described it like some peaceful retreat, fresh air, quiet nights, no city noise. The village was deep in the hills. You had to take a bus, then a small van, then walk uphill on a rocky path. By the time we arrived, my legs ached, and the sun was starting to drop behind the mountains. Samir's grandmother greeted us warmly. She was sweet, smiling, and kept calling me son. But I noticed something strange right away. As we walked through the village, one house near the edge of the path caught my attention. It was small and old, like the others. But the front had something missing. There was no door. Just a dark, open doorway. I slowed down to look. Samir grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. "Don't stare at that," he whispered. I laughed. "Why? It's just a broken house." Samir didn't laugh back. "That house doesn't need a door," he said, voice tight. I tried to joke. "So what? It's haunted." Samir looked at me hard. "Just don't go near it at night." That night, after dinner, we sat outside under a sky full of stars. The village was quiet. Too quiet. No dogs barking. No insects chirping. Just wind. I asked Samir again about the doorless house, and he finally sighed. "People say someone used to live there," he said. "A man who took in lost travelers." "That sounds nice." Samir shook his head. "They never left." I rolled my eyes. "Come on." Samir lowered his voice. "My grandmother says, if you walk past that doorway at night, it calls you." "Calls you how?" He hesitated. "It sounds like someone you love." That made me uncomfortable, but I tried not to show it. Later, we went inside and slept in the front room. I woke up in the middle of the night needing water. The house was dark, but I could see faint moonlight through the window. As I sat up, I heard something outside. A voice. Soft. Saying my name. I froze. It sounded like my mother. Clear as day. "Come here," the voice said, gentle and calm. My mouth went dry. My mother was hundreds of miles away. I looked at Samir. He was asleep, facing the wall. The voice came again. My name, again, slower this time. I got up slowly, heart pounding, and moved toward the window. Outside, the village path was empty. But that voice still sounded close, like it was right outside. Then I saw it. Near the edge of the path, standing in the darkness, was the doorless house. The open doorway looked even darker at night, like a hole cut into the world. And from inside that darkness, I heard my mother's voice again. "Please! I'm cold, come help me!" I backed away fast. I shook Samir hard. "Samir!" I hissed. "Wake up!" He opened his eyes instantly, like he wasn't really sleeping. He looked at my face, then toward the window. He didn't ask what happened. He just whispered, "You heard it." I nodded, breathing fast. Samir sat up and said, "Don't respond. Don't go outside. Whatever you do." The voice outside changed again, getting a little sharper. "Why are you ignoring me?" It still sounded like my mother, but now it sounded angry. Then it said something that made my skin crawl. It used a nickname my mother used when I was a kid. Nobody else knew that. Samir's grandmother suddenly appeared in the room, holding a small oil lamp. She looked serious, no smile now. She placed the lamp by the window and muttered something under her breath. Then she sprinkled a line of salt across the doorway of our room. The voice outside went quiet. For a few seconds there was only silence. Then, a low, slow laugh came from outside. Not my mother anymore. Something deeper. Something amused. Samir's grandmother looked at us and said, "Do not look out again." We didn't. We stayed awake until morning. At sunrise, the village looked normal again. Birds chirped. People walked outside. Kids laughed. I almost convinced myself it was some dream. But when we left the village later that day, I did something stupid. I walked a little closer to that doorless house, just to see what was inside. The doorway was dark, even in daylight. I leaned forward. Inside, it wasn't empty. There were scratches all over the inside walls. Deep, rough claw marks. And in the dust on the floor, there were footprints. Bare feet. Leading in, but none leading out. A few years ago, my cousin married into a family from a desert village. The kind of village where houses were made of clay and the roads were just sand. They invited us for the wedding, and we stayed for 3 days. The village had one main well. Everyone used it. It was old, with a stone rim worn smooth from decades of hands pulling buckets. On the first day, a little boy fell near the well and started crying. His mother rushed over and pulled him away quickly, scolding him like he'd done something dangerous. I asked my cousin's new brother-in-law why she reacted so strongly. He looked at me and said, "Because the well listens." I laughed awkwardly. "What?" He didn't smile. "They say if you cry near it at night," he said, "it cries back." That night the power went out. No fan. No lights. The air was hot and still. I couldn't sleep, so I stepped outside to get some air. The village was quiet, but I could hear faint movement near the well. Like water splashing. That didn't make sense. Nobody drew water at midnight. I walked slowly toward it. As I got closer, the air felt colder, like the heat dropped suddenly. Then I heard it. A voice. From below. Not echoing like someone down in a hole, but clear. Like someone speaking right under my feet. "Hello?" it said. I froze, staring at the black opening of the well. The voice came again. "Help me!" I backed away, heart racing. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw an old woman holding a lantern. She stared at me and said, "Don't talk to it." "I didn't," I whispered. She walked up to the well, leaned over, and spat into it. Then she muttered something and pulled me away. "People fell in long ago," she said. "They died. But they still call." My throat felt tight. "That voice, it sounded like a man." She nodded slowly. "Sometimes it sounds like a child. Sometimes it sounds like your friend. It wants you to answer." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I tried to avoid the well, but you couldn't. It was in the center. Everyone passed it. And as we were leaving the village on the third day, I walked by it one last time. The sun was bright. The village was loud with wedding leftovers, people laughing, dishes clinking. I glanced down into the well. It was dark, like always. Then, from deep below, I heard something soft. A whisper. My name. Not shouted. Not echoed. Just whispered. Like it was right behind my ear. I spun around. Nobody was there. And when I looked back down into the well, I saw something wet shining on the stone rim. Like fresh fingerprints. Trailing upward. My friend Adil used to do charity work, delivering food and blankets to villages cut off by heavy rain. One winter, he told me he got stuck in a mountain village for a night because the roads flooded. He stayed in a small home offered by a local family. The family was kind, but tense. They kept locking the doors early, long before night fully came. Adil asked why. The father just said, "Because he walks after dusk." "Who?" Adil asked. The father didn't answer. That night, Adil lay on a thin mattress near the fire. The house was quiet, except for the wind rattling the wooden walls. Then, around midnight, he heard it. A knock. Slow. One tap. Pause. One tap. Pause. Like whoever was knocking had all the time in the world. Adil sat up, listening. The father was already awake. Adil could see him sitting in the dark, staring at the door. The knock came again. The father didn't move. Then a voice outside spoke softly. "Open." It was calm. Not angry. Not begging. Just expecting. The father whispered to Adil, "Do not speak." The knock continued. One tap. Pause. One tap. Long pause. Adil said the pauses felt wrong. Too deliberate. Like the person outside was enjoying the waiting. After a few minutes, the voice spoke again, closer to the door now. "I can smell you." Adil felt his stomach twist. Then the voice changed slightly, sounding amused. "I know you're new." Adil's blood ran cold. He hadn't said a word. How did it know? The father's hand shook as he gripped a small iron tool, like a weapon. The knocking stopped. Silence. Adil thought it was over. Then the voice whispered through the crack under the door. "Tomorrow, you'll come out anyway." The next morning, Adil left as soon as the roads cleared. Before he left, he asked the father who it was. The father looked exhausted. He said, "A man died on the path years ago. Froze in the snow. Now he comes back every winter. He knocks. If you open, he doesn't leave." Adil thought that was it. But months later, Adil went back to deliver supplies again. He asked if the father's family was okay. A neighbor's face went pale. He told Adil, "They moved." "Why?" The neighbor hesitated, then said quietly, "Because the knocking started happening in the daytime." This last story is from someone who messaged me late one night, and I still think about it sometimes. He said he attended a wedding in an isolated village where his cousin lived. The wedding was held outdoors, with lights strung up between trees, music playing, and people dancing in circles. Everything felt normal, until it got late. Around 2 a.m., the music stopped suddenly. Not like someone turned it down. Like the power died. Everyone froze. Then, from the darkness beyond the lights, someone began walking toward the wedding. A tall figure. Slow steps. Nobody spoke. The groom's uncle stepped forward and called out, "Who is that?" The figure didn't answer. As it came closer, people started whispering. Because they recognized the clothes. It was dressed like a wedding guest. But nobody recognized the face. It was too pale. Too still. Like a mask. The uncle shouted again. "Stop!" The figure stopped just outside the ring of light. And it tilted its head. Then it smiled. But the smile didn't look human. It looked stretched. Unnatural. Then it spoke in a voice that sounded like several people at once. "Invite me." The crowd backed up. Some people started crying. The bride fainted. The groom stood frozen, staring like his brain refused to accept what he was seeing. Then the figure took one step forward into the light. And everyone saw its feet. There were no shoes. No toes. Just smooth ends, like the legs were cut off and rounded. The uncle threw something at it, a stone. The stone passed through the figure like it hit smoke. And the figure's smile widened. "Invite me," it repeated, calmer now. "Or I will join anyway." Then all at once, the lights snapped back on. The music resumed like nothing happened. But the figure was gone. Everyone stood confused, like waking from a dream. People laughed nervously, trying to act normal. The groom's uncle leaned close to the narrator and whispered, "Don't leave alone." The narrator thought it was just fear and superstition. Until later that night, when he walked back to the house he was staying in. Alone. The path was dark, and the village lights were far behind him. Then he heard footsteps matching his pace. Behind him. He stopped. The footsteps stopped. He started walking again. The footsteps returned. He didn't turn around. He just kept walking faster, heart pounding. Then a voice whispered close to his ear. "So rude!" He ran the rest of the way and slammed the door behind him. He locked it, breathing hard. Then he heard something outside. A slow knock. One tap. Pause. One tap. And a familiar calm voice said, "Invite me." Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.